Is he a Hall of Famer? 2 words. Frank, tell me what you think. Eli Manning.
Yeah, I don't think he is a Hall of Famer, and I think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer almost unanimously. Like, that's just, I will believe it when I see it. I will believe it when I see it. When the Hall of Fame does not put in a 2-time Super Bowl champion from New York at quarterback. Like, I doubt.
You don't think there's like a Ken Stabler, like you kind of go into the,
I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I just think in this era where we overrate Super Bowls for quarterbacks, where that's all that matters, is how many rings does he have? How many rings does he have? Well, I think Eli, again, and the New York bias is real. Like, being from Colorado, I believe that, like, East Coast, like, if Eli Manning were to have won 2 Super Bowls with the Seahawks, like, I don't think he's just walking into the Hall of Fame, but the fact that he did it with the Giants, I think he walks into the Hall of Fame. I will believe it when I see it, when Eli Manning does not make the Hall of Fame next Thursday.
I will say this for Manning. When you look at those 2 Super Bowls, he was absolutely, I mean, he gets out of the grasp of Richard Seymour. I watched that with my own eyes. Like, he made, now granted, David Tyrese, pins that ball to his helmet, but he did throw a touchdown pass to Plaxico Burress. He wins that game against arguably the best NFL team in the history of the game, the Patriots team that goes perfect until they weren't. And the Mario Manningham pass, obviously in the second title run, is so massive for Eli Manning. He played pivotal roles in those Super Bowls. I don't have a vote, and this might be the one year where I'm fine. Like, I wish I was in that room. I wish I could have those debates. They only have, so many national at-large votes for Hall of Fame. I would love to be, included in that process and get, dig into these debates. But I will say this one in particular, I don't know that I would want to be in that room, because I think it is going to be a little bit of a dicey conversation when it comes to Manning. And
he'll get in. He's going to get in. Like,
okay, let me ask you this, Frank.
It's inevitable.
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's because he's a Manning?
That
Do you
too.
think that
like
has? What if he was not Manning? What if he was
too.
not a Manning? What if he was? What if he was?
Eli Smith?
Let's say, it's Eli Smith.
Let me be a jerk. What if his name was Jim Plunkett? I mean, my God, 2 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl MVP, the first minority to ever win a Super Bowl at the quarterback position, is not in the Hall of Fame. So every time somebody says, well, he has 2 Super Bowl wins, so does Jim Plunkett. Like, Jim Plunkett's not in the Super Bowl.
He didn't do it in New York. He didn't do it in New York. That's the thing.
Cares?
That is a huge,
it's a
huge deal. I don't care, but it matters. It does. If you guys say that doesn't matter, I'd be shocked. Like, it matters that he did it in that market. And I don't think it should matter, but it does. It just does. And by the way, 2007 Giants winning that Super Bowl, we say, and even you said, Eli won that Super Bowl at the past of Plaxico and all that. You know who won that Super Bowl for the Giants, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday? Steve Spagnuolo. That's who won that Super Bowl. That defense won that Super Bowl. Eli was great. He's fine. He was along for the ride, but it wasn't like some transcendent. I don't think Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. I really don't. I still think football's a team game, and just because he was a quarterback of those teams doesn't mean he became the greatest quarterback in the world for 3 hours. I think he was very fortunate. Like, he played well, but I don't think that makes him a Hall of Famer. But also, I just think it's inevitable. I think it is inevitable that Eli Manning's going to be in the Hall of
Fame. Isn't there some level, let me oversimplify, but when I think of Hall of Famer, I think of the person that, when we play the schedule game at the beginning of the year, as dreadful as that is, when we play the schedule game, you look at it and you say, oh my God, I can't believe, got to take on Mahomes. Man, I'm scared to death of that Mahomes team. Yeah. Oh my God, got to take on Josh Allen. Things that we say right now. Oh my God, got to take on Lamar, man. That's always going to be tough. Y'all tell me, were we sitting here during the peak of Eli Manning's career even and say, oh my God, when the schedule came out, were you looking at it saying, got to take on Eli and the Giants? Man, I don't know how we beat Eli. Eli's not Peyton. Just because they got the same name, they're not the same dude.
I think there are people, if you ask them, who's a greater quarterback in NFL history, Eli Manning or Lamar Jackson, I'm sure you would hear a lot of people say, Lamar's never won a Super Bowl. He's not a winner. I'm sure you'd hear that. I'm sure you'd hear it.
Stop it.
I'm serious.
Listen, Frank, stop talking to people at the bus terminal. Come on, man. that is not a good test audience to have an argument built on.
We
that's
overrate.
just ridiculous.
My point is, we overrate Super Bowls. We totally overrate Super Bowls for quarterbacks.
Well, look, I'll give you this. Probably the best thing on his resume is Tom Brady. He stopped Tom Brady. Like, that's how it is. That's how it's looked at. Like, it's like, this is the guy who stopped Tom Brady twice.
He didn't. What was he play defensive end?
I get it.
Come on.
I understand that, but we do look at the Super Bowl as quarterback matchups. You tell me we're not sitting there and staring at Pat. We're going to spend the entire week talking about Patrick Mahomes, and we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts, and we're going to focus so much of this through the quarterbacks and what went into the trials and tribulations of each of these quarterbacks. We're going to talk about Mahomes not having the greatest personnel around him. He continues this dominance, and maybe Tyreek Hill should have stuck around. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts. Does he hate Nick Sirianni? Is Nick Sirianni, always on the hot seat because of Jalen Hurts? What's their relationship? How come Jalen Hurts went through this gully in his performance? Is he back? That's what the league is. We focus everything through the quarterbacks. And when I think of Eli Manning, I do think of, whenever I see he and Peyton together, I can't help but think of how he always has the one up on his brother, where he can be like, I'm the one who stopped Tom twice in our family in Super Bowls. You had a 3-2 playoff record against him. Technically, you have that edge, but on the biggest stage,
he beat him in the AFC Championship
on the biggest stage, and still, to me, the most shocking outcome I've ever seen. And I was at the 28-3 comeback against the Falcons. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen unfold in the Super Bowl. But there was no way in my mind ever that undefeated Patriots team wasn't going to go, 19-0, wasn't going to beat that Giants team, because it was too perfect. Everything was as lined up as it's ever been in history for a team, both on the field, from a motivational standpoint. I still can't believe that Giants team, and I still remember sitting there and thinking, Richard Seymour had him. He's sacked. It's done. That's game. And watching Eli Manning get out of the grasp and throw the pass to Tyree, and then eventually the touchdown to Plaxico. I don't think that gets, if I had a Hall of Fame vote, I don't think that would get him in the Hall of Fame for me personally. But even though I don't want to be in the room making the decision, I am curious to know how that conversation really breaks down. If he goes in near unanimous, as you think, I will be shocked.
Just telling you, this is inevitable, man. This is inevitable. He's going in because his name is Manning and because he played in New York and he won 2 Super Bowls. Like, again, I will believe it when I see it.
Frank,
if he's not in.
Frank, if you had a vote, you would not. C-Rob,
absolutely not. He wouldn't even be a finalist. He wouldn't even be a finalist.
Would he ever, in your mind, be a Hall of Famer? Okay. C-Rob, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer if you had a vote?
I'm inclined for first ballot. I'm inclined to say no, but I also am one of these guys who believes either you're a Hall of Famer or you're not. Like, you can't convince me 5 years later that he's a Hall of Famer if he's not in year one.